I'm a specialist in gender and youth at the Technical Cooperation Directorate. We would like to welcome you to the launch of the Hemispheric platform for rural women and the Rural Women's Forum on Agri-Food Systems with the participation of women from Latin America and the Caribbean. We have created a Menti code for you to add your comments and questions and about the issues at hand today and the platform. Please go to www.mentimeter.com. Once you're there, type in 21503562. 21503562. That's the code. Please feel free to enter all of your questions, concerns, and comments, and be fully engaged in this platform, which is of so much importance to ICA and to all of the of the Ministries of Agriculture and Development and other authorities on the path to a more inclusive agriculture. Without further ado, I will now hand it over to Mr. Lloyd Day, our Deputy Director General. Thank you, Ileana, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is such an honor to be here with you this morning. I'm here thanks to a woman, the first female woman Secretary of Agriculture in the United States, who now lives in the United States. She sits on the board of Nestle, the company. She's had a wonderful track record. Recently, we had a meeting with ministers, women ministers and deputy ministers of agriculture in several countries, and where vital information was shared in the interest of improving agri-food systems around the world. They are cognizant of the need to continue to push for policies to improve access to income, loans, information, and incentives for women, access to resources such as land, human resources, tools, information and communication technologies, financial inclusion and capital markets, innovation and technology, and the enhancement of income from remunerated work, and supporting women's leadership in decision-making and creating opportunities for significant involvement and participation by them. The ministers and deputy ministers acknowledge the importance to have venues for dialogue to move forward with the necessary policies to strengthen agri-food systems. In several countries, different roundtables or discussions are promoted between the public and private sectors, also looking for more participation of women in rural areas based on justice, sustainability, and inclusion. They fight for veritably gender equality promoting policies for women, and especially in rural areas, and to broach the structural problems that have been a scourge so far. Today, we meet with rural women leaders in their regions to receive their contributions from their own daily life and to be able to make the most of their ability to make contributions and effect change. This will help us in our work, because by listening to rural women and to women who from the spheres of public policy fight for equality and for gender equality and equity, we will be able to effect the changes needed to bridge the gaps between men and women and to put an end to inequality. As one of our panelists said during the first dialogue, women have been talked about. Now it is time for them to talk. That is why ICA will continue to promote these opportunities so that together we can continue to build a gender agenda within the framework of agri-food systems. We need better and more information to enable us to find out about the contribution of rural women to the production of food and their marketing, innovation, and sustainable production experiences, so as to put an end to underreporting and lend visibility to those who work 3 times as long as men every day. We need a change to affect change in our culture, so as to understand that agriculture and agri-food systems are also female, and we cannot continue to see agriculture as a male universe, because if we continue to make the same mistakes as we did in the past, we will never get ahead. These opportunities for exchanges are of the essence, and it is high time we've had them. This platform for rural women that we now provide to the international community is part of the work under the 2030 agenda on the road to gender equality and equity, and hopefully it will be a tool to maintain dialogue and advocacy in public policy. We will continue to work for women to be at the forefront of the transformation of agri-food systems. You will lead the way. Thank you. Thank you, Lloyd, and thank you for those kind opening remarks. We also have with us today Federico Villarreal, Technical Cooperation Director at ICA, and rural leaders, Ileana Jimenez, Tamisha Lee, Elvia Monzon, Mariela Sanchez, and Griselda Mendieta. They're all here in representation of a region. Sandra Ziegler is here with us too. She's the Special Advisor on Digitization at ICA, and Ms. Beverly Best, Director for External and Institutional Relations at ICA, and Mariela Zúñiga, a specialist with the Technical Cooperation Directorate, and Andrea Carolina Borda. She's also an ICA specialist based in Colombia. We would like to thank Judy Amaya for being here with us. She is Under Secretary for Rural Development in Ecuador, and Judith Ordóñez. She is the Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock in Honduras. And she's here with us, and we would like to hear from her now. You have the floor, ma'am. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, and I have very high expectations for this meeting. Can you hear me now? Asks the speaker. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you. As I said, our expectations are so high. We have very high hopes for this meeting, and we are very excited about participating. Good day to all. Thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary, and good day to you. Mariela Zúñiga has the floor now. She will be in charge of the presentation on the platform for rural women, the Hemispheric platform, which is a matter of great pride for ICA and the output of a great deal of work. We would like to thank rural women for leading the way and helping us get here today. Mariela.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Eliana. It is a great pleasure for me to be able to do this launching today. As Liliana was saying, this is a very important moment and for women in rural agriculture, rural women in agriculture. I would like to thank ICA's teamwork in terms of youth, like Priscila Zúñiga, Silvia Castellano, Carlos Ruiz, Naib Blanco, for their support and collaboration so that this platform could actually become a reality. I would also like to thank the participation of the company Flus, which is a 12-year-old communication company that has helped us in the creation and development of this platform. And they also had E2 Rocks, which is their partner, who assisted them also in the creation of this platform. So very well, I would like to tell you about how this platform was created. We can ask ourselves, what is the origin or what is the reason behind it? So last year, we had a number of fora with the participation of rural women, and the topic was rural women in equity faced with the pandemic in 2019. And during this fora, we heard the voices of our rural women where they would tell us about their needs and their expectations with regards to their reality. So we thought of creating this platform specifically. The process for the creation of this platform also has a symbol behind it. Symbols are very important for us to identify ourselves and create an identity. So the identity of the platform, here we have three symbols which we can see. The first one has to do with the lines that we see in green, like a Wi-Fi signal. This is connectivity. What we want to show with this is for women to be connected, regardless of how far apart they may be or where they may be located, so that women can actually have the option to connect with other women. We also have the symbol of women or the microphone, which helps us think about the opportunity that women have their voices heard. And then we have the icon of the seed. And this, of course, makes us think about land and about our heritage. So now I'm going to explain briefly the platform as such. When we log into the mujeresrurales.ica.int, we would see this page that you see here on the slide. There are a number of things that you need to notice. First of all, we have the opportunity to choose the language. The content of the platform is in 4 languages: Spanish, English, Portuguese, and French. So we can choose in a very intuitive way the language. We will also find institutional information when we can read things about governance and things about the institution as such. We also have access to the e-learning platform. You see there's like a box, if we want to call it that way, and that takes us directly to ICA's virtual resources. And finally, we have something else that is very important, and we urge you to go there, which is the registration box. Later on, I'm going to explain how you can register so that you can have access to exclusive content as well. Here you can see that. So on the main page or home page, before we register, we can also see some important articles, publications, news as well. And we can also have access to the link for the book called Luchadoras, Fighters. And this book talks about or gathers some unpublished work of the authors, who are all both male and or men and women, that talk about statistics of women in the rural area, and it also provides answers to the question of why it is important to create opportunities for women in the field. So there you can just have direct access to this book, Luchadoras. Now, regarding registration, there are some basic important things that we want to talk to you about. The first one is that we need to have an email address to be able to register. So where it says register your account, you can type in your name, last name, date of birth, email, and a password. When you enter all this information, you will receive in your email to your spam box and message from the platform for you to activate the account. When you confirm the activation of the account, it means that you have already generated or created your account. And aside from that, it is very important for each user that registers to complete a general information form. For example, the country, place, domicile, sorry, in ethnic group, formal education. This is very important too, because the content that we want to share in the platform, we want it to be tailored to to the background and the interest of rural women. And this will give us that kind of information, and that is very important. There are a number of things that we will also like to mention. First of all, ICA has a data protection service. So everything that you share here will be only be used for the purposes of the platform, and it will remain confidential. You can also, as I said before, the idea is for this information to be available in the 4 languages. And with the registration of the account and your profile, we will have access to exclusive content. Initially, I told you that when we go to the homepage, we can see some news and have access to the Luchadora's book and other information. Once you register, you will have access to exclusive content that I will mention to you briefly in the future. So one of the main pillars of the platform is connected women. This is where we will have the opportunity to answer to the questions posed in the fora, to generate networks and organizations. That for all of us is very important. So via this Google Maps app, we can see an arrow where you can see the symbol of the platform by regions and by countries. This means that there you will find a network and an organization of rural women. So if you click on the icon, you will be able to see the person's address or the organization's address and all the information. And from there, we can start generating a network. We also have another part where you will find successful experiences, where we can share experiences from the entire hemisphere regarding projects or articles or publications that are being done on agriculture that may be of interest to rural women. Then we have projects and initiatives, which was something that I already mentioned. And there is another box, to call it somehow, which is called interaction amongst us. And that's the one that we see with that picture down there. Here, each woman has the opportunity to interact with other women, talking about topics of interest, posing questions, or just bringing up any topic that they deem interesting. So let me remind you of the Menti code, because all the interactions that we have at Menti, we will be able to upload them in this part of the platform. So let me remind you of the code so you can have it handy: 21503562. Another important resource that we have in the platform has to do with information and the photo gallery. In here, we can visualize projects and initiatives through a graphic resource. And as you'll be able to see when you go into the platform, it is quite interactive, and it shares a gallery of images and pictures related to projects or topics that are being worked on in agriculture. So as you can see, we can see the picture. We just click on the picture, and there we will then be able to see all the information related to that project. Now, publications. Within resources and information, we have another part that talks about publications. Here we will find an extensive database with information of interest, indicators and statistics related to rural women in the hemisphere, and there we'll also find ICA report and technical documents on rural women. So here we can then have access to the information by clicking there, and then we can read more where it says read more, and then we will be able to see all the information. As you probably know, ICA generates content and publications. So right now we're uploading very new information on what we're doing. And the other resource for information that we have, which is as important as was already mentioned, has to do with regulations. In the fora, rural women told us that they did not know the public regulations that had to do with women in the agricultural sector. So we will have the regulations by country, by region. Let's remember that this covers the entire hemisphere. So we will have access from all the regions or information from all the regions. And we will have this in a very intuitive way, and it's also categorized. So finally, we have the fora. This is a very significant part of the platform because the idea of the creation of this platform was pretty much developed from here. Here we can find the fora and all the different activities carried out by ICA regarding our topic of interest. And so here we have access to last year's forum and also a forum of the southern region. So here we can see the different activities that we are generating constantly. So that's the end of the presentation of the platform. I want to thank you for your interest, and I would also like to urge you to log in, enter your data, and be part of this initiative. Let's remember that this platform was created for and by you. And so it is very important for you all to get to know it a little better. So now I'm going to introduce my colleague, Andrea Carolina. She is the specialist from Colombia who will be in charge of the forum that we will be holding now.
Muchas gracias, Mariela. Buenos días a todos y a todas.
Thank you, Mariela, and good day to all. My name is Andrea Carolina Borda, and it's such a pleasure to be here with you at this very important event where we will hear from rural women leaders about agri-food systems and their own role as agents of change. I would like to start by thanking all of these women who are here with us today in representation of the Andean, Caribbean, Central, North, and Southern region. Northern and Southern region. In the interest of time, I will just move on to introducing these very important leaders. On behalf of the Andean region, we have Ileana Jimenez. She is a producer of organic cocoa and citrus in Cundinamarca in Colombia. She sits on the Proaso Agro Board of Directors. It's an organization that works with the production, processing, and marketing of cocoa. And she's also the chair of the National Cocoa Fund Committee. On behalf of the Caribbean, we have Tamisha Lee. She is the president of the Rural Women's Rural Producer Women's in Jamaica. She's also she's also the CEO at A Plus Agro Company, and she has also been on several panels, international conferences in working with gender equality in agriculture. She has been at the forefront of the fight for equality for rural women. On behalf of the Central Region, we have Elvia Maria Monzon del Valle coming from the village Rancho Viejo in the municipality of San Antonio Huista in Guatemala. She is a coffee grower and she works with crop diversification on her farm. She produces avocado and honey as well, and she is the chair and also legal representative of the cooperative for coffee growers in Rancho Viejo in Guatemala. On behalf of the Northern Region, we have Maria Sanchez, representative of the network Zoques Women's. She works in advocacy in Mexico and seeks for more dignity for Zoques women in Mexico in daily life and also in agriculture. We have Griselda Mendieta from the Southern region. She is a grape producer and a fruit producer, and on behalf of the agrarian cooperative of grape producers, Cava, and she is part of the Society for the Development of Canelón Chico in the Department of Canelones in Uruguay, and she's part of several development initiatives in Uruguay, in rural Uruguay. Let me tell you about how this will work. Each of these 5 rural women that I have just introduced to you will each have 5 minutes to speak. The idea is for them to answer the following question: which are your priorities as agents for change in agri-food systems? Once we've heard from each of them in that 5-minute window, they will have an additional minute for conclusions. And that we will now start with Ms. Ileana Jimenez, representing the Andean region. Greetings, Liliana. And the question once again is, what are your priorities as agents for change in agri-food systems? You have 5 minutes. And in the interest of time, I will give you a 1-minute warning before the end of your 5-minute time. Thank you, and good morning to all who are here with us at this event and watching us. In response to your question, let me just say, first of all, that when I read the question, what I tried to think about was the priorities in terms of work for agri-food systems in general, and there are so many of them. But when I thought about the question per se, what I asked myself was, what are my priorities as an agent for change, as a rural woman, and in terms of the whole solidarity approach that I work with and the organizational work that I do. And there are 2 specific points that I'd like to bring to the table. First of all, let me ask you to please see these questions in terms of sustainable agriculture and the SDGs and what this means for rural women as a challenge. And in terms of these 3 major conducting lines, sustainability and all, the answers that I found were the following. First of all, in terms of sustainable development from a social standpoint, first of all, let me say that based on the work that I do with the National Cocoa Fund, I am now leading a program that I feel is of the essence, and it is to support solidarity organizations and trade unions and co-ops in their activities. There is something that we sometimes take for granted as part of the work by these organizations, and that's not necessarily so. We are part of the solidarity and social economy. And everything that we do is about people. And we have a common goal, which is the welfare of all, solidarity. the common good. That should be part and parcel of the DNA of these organizations. This should go without saying, but the truth is that when we visit these organizations and associations and co-ops, what we see is that we have lost sight of our goals because what takes precedence is productivity and marketing and trade. And we forget that we're all about people, the families that are members of these organizations. So once again, I'd like to go back to this first social pillar because I would like to call for us to think about this. When we reach out to these solidarity organizations, are we going back to these principles, to the principles that are germane to the solidarity economy, and that we are about the families who come together under the umbrella of an organization for the pursuit of the same goals based on the same principles? And in pursuit of the common good. In terms of environmental sustainability, the challenges are daunting. As a leader, the question for myself is, what have I done thus far and what can I continue to do to contribute to this? The answer is to promote ever more sustainable agriculture that is ever more rooted in the environment and organic agriculture, because our number one principle is food security for our families. And from there on, of course, it's about the community as a whole. And we feel responsible for our production contributing to health and well-being and welfare. And this, of course, goes hand in hand with taking care of the environment. By continuing to work with sustainable agriculture, I think that we, 1 minute warning, that's what we can do as women. And in terms of financial sustainability, there's something that we have learned, especially from the pandemic, I might add. One of them is that in order to have better income and more income for families and women, and including young people, is to add value to the products that we are now producing. In our town, we have been able to move forward with a project to have a single center for agri-industry for cocoa, coffee, fruit, and soy, which are the 4 lines of production that we have. I am sharing this because that was the solution that we find by joining efforts with other organizations and the mayor's office and other organizations who have a single project to benefit women, young people, to create jobs and to bring different generations together, and at the same time to find a way to compete, because we as women organized under the umbrella of these organizations, we have to find the best way to compete on the markets that we want to access. Thank you so much. Thank you, Liliana, and thank you for staying within the time limit. That will help us benefit from everybody's participation. Now, we would like to hear from Tamisha Lee here on behalf of the Caribbean region. Tamisha, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair. Protocols having been established, I first would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to address the launch of the Hemispheric Rural Women Platform, and in so doing, on the theme Agri-Food Systems and Rural Women, where are our priorities as agent of change in the agri-food systems? Rural women have been playing a critical role in building a strong agri-food systems, and we will continue on this path, moving from strength to strength if we give priority to the following 8 areas. 1, adequate storage facility. Our rural women need to be able to have adequate storage facility to mitigate glut and spoilage and to allow for them to increase production where necessary. 2, agro-processing. We need appropriate agro-processing facility to allow for the processing of value-added product from our produce. This will mitigate agricultural produce wastage financial loss, and resources inputted in the process. We need to start using our fruits for juices, our cassavas and breadfruit to make flour, and so many other stuff that I see on the ground during the different seasons in Jamaica. 3, startup capital. We need adequate startup capital to ensure that our agripreneur venture is adequately funded to facilitate sustainability. 4, knowledge sharing. Rural women across the hemisphere need to connect with each other and share knowledge and best practices to enhance the growth and development of rural women in the agri-food system globally. 5, training. The world is evolving, and if our rural women are going to not only survive but thrive, investment in training is paramount. Our rural women capacity must be enhanced in areas relevant to their needs, not only for their active participation in the agri-food system, but to enable them to be successful in their efforts to build sustainable businesses, support their families, building strong communities, reducing food import bill, and contributing to our nation's food security and nutrition. 6, market research. Our rural women need to be reliably informed of available markets locally and overseas. 7, policy. The practice of discussing us behind us must not continue. Rural women must be included at the initial stage of policy dialogues. This will ensure that their issues are adequately addressed and planned for at high level. And 8 and last, reflection. Rural women across the globe need to reflect on how they see themselves in the agri-food system. Have we bought into the stereotype of our role into the system? How many times did we remain silent when we should have been speaking up? How many times did we bend our backs when we should have been standing tall? How many times did we walk away because the door was shut on us? How many times did we accept less than what our true value was? How many times? So it is very important that we as rural women look within ourselves and begin to assert ourselves and take our role with dignity in the agri-food system. In closing, I just want to remind our rural women of the role that they have to play in achieving the sustainable development goals and in building our agri-food system. Our resilience, strength, and our fortitude does not make us a part of the problem, but instead the solution. We are happy to participate in today's event. We are very hopeful that this is the beginning of something new for our rural women in the agri-food systems, and we pledge our full support to ensure its success. There is so much more to be said on the topic, but this concludes my brief remarks. Thank you all for giving me a listening ear.
Muchas gracias, Tamisha.
Thank you very
Importantes
much, Tamisha. Very important ideas. And now I would like to give the floor to Elvia Maria Monzon del Valle on behalf of the Central Region. And just to recap, I wanted to remind you of the question. The question is, what are your priorities as agents for change within the agri-food systems? So, Elvia, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead, please. Well, good morning. First of all, I would like to thank God for the opportunity to be here speaking before you. I would like to tell you briefly about my story. I was already introduced. I grow coffee since I was very little. I have always liked coffee. And so I have pretty much based my entire life around coffee and my family around coffee production. So before that, we were producing sugar cane, but it was not as profitable to support our families. So my father started to become a coffee grower, and that's that's what my childhood was like. And we have been affected by diseases and pests, but I have then also become part of this organization in trying to attain better prices for our products. And currently, I am representing an organization. As a rural woman, I, I have seen that trainings have strengthened me. Before, when I was appointed as representative, I would feel scared. My hands were shaking before speaking people and before talking to the members of my organization. But now, thank God, as I have been as I have been given the chance to train myself and speak to people from other countries, and I have also become trained thanks to the uh, sponsorship of other countries. So I am very happy to say that thanks to ICA and their support in our country, now as women, we have been able to move forward. I also received coffee plants, and that has motivated me to move forward as well. Something else that I believe has strengthened our country as rural women is to be able to have a fund, because regardless of how much we want to work, if we don't have that fund, it is very hard to do so. So this has been very important contribution to our society, to our country. Without money, we cannot do anything. But with the fund that we received on behalf of ICA as a startup capital, we have been able to give the chance to men and women to have some small credit for them to improve the production in their plots. This is something that has definitely strengthened organizations, because some people just say, well, women are organized, but we don't see they're moving forward. And then we get some training, and then they say, well, we gave them the training, but we don't see any results out of that. But I do believe that this capital that we have and that has strengthened us will motivate more women to become part of the organizations, to be able to move forward. I have had the opportunity to share experiences in other places as well. And that was because I was trained. So I want to motivate women to become involved within their organizations so that we can empower ourselves and become leaders and attain more economic support. 1 minute left. We have also had the opportunity to diversify our crops. In my plot, I diversify crops. And the challenge that I have as a woman located in the rural area is to preserve the quality of my product, to be able to have access to markets that can give me a fair price for women, because we are the ones who have the least number of opportunities to be also environmentally or friendly with nature. That is also very important within our organization, to preserve the soil, not to pollute the environment, to take care of rivers. And I want to motivate women to become involved within their organizations, to have access to the trainings provided, and in this way to be able to improve the quality of your products, like the ones who are part of the organization have already done. And also to pay attention to our youth because they are the ones who are migrating the most, and that is also affecting us harshly. I do think that we should also, as women, should approach them. And the last thing I would like to say is that as women, we should have access to credit to be able to start a business and thus also generate jobs for our youth. And in this way, try to avoid this migration that is affecting us so much. And maybe also have access to a fund that is not daunting because as a women's organization, having access to a fund with very high interest rates, well, then we would only be working to pay those interest rates. So the challenge would be to seek a way to find a way to be able to provide women with a low interest credit so that we can all feel motivated and move forward and to continue getting trained to attain positions in the public sector because that's hard for us since we are not trained. Oftentimes we are not taken into consideration and our voices are not heard. And sometimes people say, well, since I don't have any formal education, I don't have a way to communicate myself correctly, and maybe I'm talking to people who are all professionals. And the interpreter is having,
Creo que perdimos la señal
no,
de Elvia.
we lost
Bueno,
Elvia's
la retomo
signal.
para la segunda parte del foro.
So for the second part
Luego
of this
quiero darle
forum,
el paso
I would
a
like
nuestra representante de
to
la región norte.
give the
Ella es
floor to the
María Sánchez.
representative of the Northern Region,
María,
Maria
tienes
Sanchez.
5 minutos.
Go ahead, Maria. You
Luego
have 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you have 1 minute left. Thank you very much. I would like to thank ICA for their invitation and to answer the question of which are our priorities from my personal standpoint as Angels for Change to support agri-food systems and sovereignty. So faced with the challenges that we have, such as civilization and things that happened to women all over the world, but also particularly in indigenous communities, because women have been replaced in the community realm due to this poor management of growing individually and growing collectively. So what is the challenge here? Within my organization, we promote for women to be included in the allocation of land, and particularly indigenous women. Why? Because women play a key role in the southern region of Mexico. Most indigenous women are the ones who preserve seed biodiversity to provide for this all natural foods consumed by the family. And this is all based on family agriculture, and also what women grow is used to provide for the maintenance of the family, food, and so on and so forth. So the contribution of women oftentimes is ignored, and they are not given access to land. So we work to change the law in our country and make sure that community land can again be family owned so that women can then potentialize their individualism from the collective standpoint, because women usually don't think about ourselves, but we think about preserving the community life, developing this social fabric that helps us all thrive with dignity. And we have other production, other things in our territories like mining and other things that affect our environment. And women are the ones who usually are affected the most. And that's also a pandemic. It's a world pandemic from my standpoint. This capitalist system that exploits and overexploits natural resources without taking into consideration that there are livelihoods, communities, there's a biodiversity that we need to take care of because it takes care of the balance in our planet. So that is a having people understand this way to see the world and of doing public policy from the perspective of rural women is a challenge. And we want our voices to be taken into consideration in all public policies and all regulations that are drafted in our countries. I believe that if we do not manage to attain this, we won't have a fair, harmonious, just world where women and men can coexist in harmony and making the decisions together. Because this is not, I'm not only fighting for my family and for my community, whatever I manage to get for my family, it also helps my community, my peoples. And with that, we can also help our nation. That's our main challenge as women who defend the territory and take care of the biodiversity of our region. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maria. And to conclude, I'm now going to give the floor to the representative from the Southern region, Griselda Mendieta. Go ahead, Griselda.
Tienes tu micrófono apagado.
Your microphone is off.
Ahora sí,
Can you hear
Perfecto.
me now? Yes,
buenos días
perfect.
a todos y a
So
todas.
good morning,
Bueno, yo voy a
everybody.
hacer una pequeña
Well,
introducción. Nosotras las
I'm
mujeres
going
rurales
to
en
give
el
you a brief
2015
introduction. Rural
realizamos
women in
un censo
2015
en un departamento que está en Uruguay
gathered
que se llama
in a place
el
called
centro
Rio
Jimenez.
Negro in Uruguay, the
Nosotros
middle of the country.
allí tuvimos una
It was quite a
conversación las mujeres
productive
y
meeting.
acordamos una agenda de
Around
trabajo
700 women
que se llama
agreed on a
Voces
working agenda,
Organizadas.
which we called
Planteamos
Voices
temas,
of
trabajos
Organized
y
Women.
metas
We
hasta
talked
el
about some
2030.
goals
Y
and
así
things that we
estamos
could
tratando
work
de
on
llevar
until
adelante.
2020.
Las mujeres
And
en
this
nuestras
is something that we're
comunidades rurales
still
abordan todos
working
los
on.
días
Women in the
intereses
rural
agrupados
communities
e
always take into
individuales
consideration
que son
individual
en lo
and
social,
community interest in the
cultural,
social,
violencia
cultural,
de género,
health,
cuidado,
gender
educación,
violence,
formación, comunicación,
training,
juventud,
communication, and
todo
youth
va
into all
unido.
these realms.
En los
And they are
aspectos
all very
productivos,
important topics. And
como
in terms of the
tierras,
production
herencias,
aspects such as
proyectos,
land, credit,
asistencia técnica,
projects,
entre otros.
technical assistance,
Muchos
among
estudios
others.
plantean que las
So
mujeres
many studies
son las
say that
principales
women
agricultoras
are the
y
main
proveedoras del empleo de
farmers
gran parte
of
del mundo,
food in
pero su
a
trabajo sigue sin ser
majority of the world.
formalmente reconocido,
But their work is
recibiendo
still
menos apoyo
not acknowledged.
técnico, crediticio,
They need
etcétera, para
credit and
desarrollar sus
technical
proyectos.
support to be able to
Las
develop their
mujeres en la
projects.
agricultura familiar
Women
en nuestro
in
país
family agriculture in
somos gran
my country,
productoras de
Uruguay,
alimentos,
are
contribuyendo así
food
a la
producers,
seguridad
and we
alimentaria,
contribute to
no
food
solo en esta
security in that
temporada,
way. And
sino
not
para
only
aportar su calidad y
generating it, but
nutrición, porque la
guaranteeing
mayoría de los
its
casos
quality and
somos
its
nosotras
nutritional
las que
value.
hacemos un
Because
especial cuidado de los
oftentimes we are
recursos
the
de la
ones who
región,
take special care
obteniendo
of
así una
natural
gran producción.
resources, obtaining
Además de todo
in that
esto,
way a
con
very
respecto
good
a la
production.
producción, somos la gran
And
mayoría de las veces
with
quienes
regards to
pequeñas
production,
productoras
oftentimes
agrícolas, ganaderas,
from
industriales,
small
artesanales,
wine
lideramos los
and
procesos de arreglo de
livestock
alimentos.
and farmer
En esta,
productions, we
en esta
produce
actividad femenina
this value
se
added.
por lo tanto, planteamos unas
So,
consideraciones,
faced with our reality,
desafíos
we
para
think
todo
of
el mundo,
several
no
ideas
solo
and
desde lo
challenges
local, desde el
that
territorio
from
y
the
su entorno.
local, from the territory,
Trabajamos
what
en
we
el
propose
camino
to
hacia
do
un país
is
exportador
to
de
develop a
alimentos de
pathway
calidad,
towards an
económico,
export country of
cuidando del
quality
medio
products,
ambiente.
taking
El
care of
rol
the environment.
fundamental de la
That's a
mujer
key
rural
role of
no
women
es
in
y
production,
debe ser acompañado.
and that
El
should
motivo,
and can
la
be
necesidad.
accompanied to
¿Quiénes
Who will be our successors in 2030? We need to think about that too. What is happening with our rural population? Why are people migrating to the cities, particularly the youth? And we have to think about ecology as well, and for our future. The role of the government or the state, public and social policies should be differentiated for family production. So with that in mind, we would be then walking towards a more sustainable future. Do I still have a minute left?
Te quedan más de un
Yes?
minuto.
Yes, you have more than a minute left.
Bueno, yo quiero
Okay,
reflexionar,
so
pensar, transmitir que cada día en el
every
mundo
day, I would
una
like to
voz
tell you,
hace
every day,
memoria
at
rural,
any
al
point in time,
cementerio,
there's a
a
rural
las
woman
ferias, a la
working
hallada, a la
outdoors,
lluvia, al sol que sale.
faced with
Por eso
the
muchas veces
daunting heat of the
desde la
sun or
agrupación
the cold
deben
weather
corregir
or
esta
rain.
agrupación.
So we
Por eso es
all, and
que
they are all
todo
doing
lo que se
so
hace,
to
todo
provide
lo que
food
se
for their
pueda
family.
cambiar
So
para que
everything that we
sea
do,
es
everything
bienvenido.
that can be changed
Así que
will
muchas
is more
gracias.
than welcome.
Agradezco el espacio
I would
y
like to
siempre
thank
pregunto
you for this
estos
opportunity.
aportes
I'm always willing
para
to
otras
learn,
mujeres y para
and
otras
hopefully
mujeres.
this will help
Muchas
other
gracias.
women worldwide too.
Muchísimas
Thank
gracias,
you.
Griselda, y esa
Thank you very
reflexión
much,
final
Griselda, for
considero
your
que es
final
Thank you,
thoughts.
Griselda.
importante
Those
también
final words are of the
escoger
essence,
nuestras mujeres
certainly, and they go back to many of the things that came up before. Now, let us move on to the second part of the forum. Let me remind you that you have 1 minute for your closing remarks, some conclusions, and then we will hear some closing remarks from Ika. Now we will no longer have Elvia. She's not with us anymore because unfortunately, as you know, what the situation is in some parts of our countries in our region, there's a power outage where she lives, so she has left the meeting. But we still we have been fortunate. We were fortunate enough to hear from her still. So Liliana, for your closing remarks. And in closing, I would like to send a message as in my capacity as rural woman to all other rural women. And it is the following: we must all be a source of inspiration for other women and encouragement for other women to become leaders, to become empowered, to believe in themselves and their own abilities, because without a doubt, as Elvia was saying herself, to the extent that we can get training and as we gain confidence, we can contribute and have more of a say and be more involved in our territories and in public policy making and in rural areas. And it is only when we become engaged in the decision-making levels that we will be able to have everything that is talked about, discussed, and decided about include a gender approach and perspective, and that we can express the needs of our children who will be our future leaders. And of course, the message for all rural women on the hemisphere is to make the most of this platform that is being launched today so that we can all continue to grow in sisterhood as rural women, helping each other, hand in hand, sharing so many experiences and being more inclusive and creating, believing, and continuing to work hand in hand with our male counterparts, because it's about working together and complementing each other, not being divided. Thank you. Thank you, Liliana. Now we will hear from Tamisha Lee from the Caribbean region. You have
Thank you
a
again.
minute, ma'am.
Thank you again. In closing, I just want to say that unity is strength. And our rural women across the globe is depending on us. We have that responsibility, a very mammoth task. We have that responsibility not to let them down. The agenda of the rural woman is not only timely, but it is relevant. And we must do what we need to do to ensure that the voices of our rural women across the globe does not remain silent. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias,
Thank you
Tamisha.
so much, Tamisha, for those words. As I was saying, Elvia has been disconnected. Unfortunately, she's not with us anymore today. We will hear now from Maria Sanchez, representing the Northern region. Thank you again. In closing, I would like to say that when we, women and men alike, from the First Nations are actually in possession and owners of our land and can decide what to do with our land and our natural resources that were bequeathed to us by Mother Earth, we will be able to guarantee healthy, nutritious foodstuffs to sustain life. And further, we will be able to build our own autonomy in the interest of self-determination of our peoples. We have been displaced, we have been subjected to violence, we have been driven from our land. We like urban areas, we like to visit the city, but that's not our habitat, that's not where we belong. We belong here in the countryside, that's where our work is, that's where our home is, and that's something that we must not lose sight of. And public policy and academia should do what is necessary to conserve and maintain these ways of life. That's part of affirmative action that is in order for the construction of welfare and well-being for all that will help sustain life in urban areas as well. Thank you so much for this invitation, and let us continue to move ahead together down this road towards better life with peace and dignity. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. In closing now, we will hear from Griselda Mendieta on behalf of the Southern region. You have the floor. I would like to use this minute to say so many things, but truth be told, let me just be candid and straightforward. Thank you so much for this invitation. I have learned so much. And this is all possible because a rural woman went to those group meetings for rural development, gets advice and training and communicates. Throughout the pandemic, our countries have been hit so hard. But I think this is such a wonderful opportunity. And I think we should all congratulate ourselves and each other for being here today, now. Thank you, and see you again always. Thank you so much, Griselda. Those are wonderful closing remarks. Before we go into the wrap-up, I would like to go back to some of the comments that have been sent to us in this meeting and through the other channels that that people have been watching us through. And I'd like to thank you all on behalf of the participants and in their own words and our audience. And you're all the agents for change, of course, about your representation. They have said things about the type of representatives that you are and your ability to lay bare the needs and the priorities and the challenges faced by women when walking down this road. That's what I wanted to say. There's so many positive comments there, and your words and your thoughts will always be welcome. And that's what we're here for. We're here to build together, side by side. So with that, I would like to thank you again and go into the final part of the session, the conclusions. We will hear from two specialists from ICA. One of them is Sandra Ziegler, the special advisor for digitization at ICA, and Beverly Best, director for institutional external relations at ICA. They will both be in charge of those closing remarks based on what we heard from you today. Before I hand it over to them, let me remind you to please click on www.mentimeter.com. Go to that address, please, and write in the code to 1503562. Once again, to 1503562. That's the Mentimeter code, so that you can put in your comments, suggestions, concerns, and those will be uploaded to the platform so that you can also be fully engaged. Once again, with a word of thanks to the specialists, I would like to now give the floor to Sandra Ziegler for her closing remarks. You have the floor. Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank my colleagues for inviting me to take part in this, to sit on this panel, and especially Ileana, Tamisha, Elvia, Maria, and Griselda for sharing their views with us from the point of view of each of their regions. First of all, I'd like to just say, just briefly, that I was very interested to hear all of the voices, all of the views that were expressed today. For example, they talked about the need for connection between women, access to knowledge, training, funding, empowerment, and lending visibility to women in the field, the need to have ownership of land, and many other things that have been brought up. I would just like to share some data just to give some background and some perspective to what you just said in terms of, in terms of data and figures. From the regional standpoint, just so you realize, and we all realize, what the role of women, rural women, is in Latin America and the Caribbean. 58 million rural women live in Latin America and the Caribbean. 17 million of them are registered as women in agriculture. 4.5 million of them are also registered as agricultural producers or farmers. And that takes me back to something that you mentioned, which is underreporting about the huge job done by rural women. They work many hours a day, oftentimes, and aside from working the land, they are also in charge of child rearing, of the home, and so many other jobs in the community as well, as you said yourselves. Only 10% of rural women in Latin America and the Caribbean have access to credit, and only 5% of them receive technical support and assistance. That is why these opportunities for exchange and leadership are so important. The work done by each and every one of you in your regions to lend visibility to this situation and to foster the creation of new public policy to broach this issue. Also, in spite of this situation of lag that we're seeing, women over the last few years in rural areas especially are the ones who have made most progress in terms of education, both when it comes to access to higher and higher levels of schooling and the conclusion of courses in school when compared to their male counterparts. So there is so much to be done there. There's an opportunity. Efforts have been made. They're huge, and so are achievements, but they are not necessarily reflected when time comes to invest in training, technical assistance, and access to land, seeds, etc. Finally, if I may, I'd like to add to the presentations that I fully support and I fully subscribe to, that there is one other element to consider for the future of development of rural women in the region, which is full access to technology. There is such a pressing need for full access to technology. Currently, technology is a must in our and an ominous presence in our territories, and it's an essential tool for many of the tasks that you mentioned, having added value to products, better quality products, access to markets, fair prices, and having environmentally and nature-friendly practices. And this goes hand in hand with the potential that is unlocked by technology, of course. And that is why I would like to applaud the opportunities created by this platform, which through digital technology allows us to come together, be in touch, exchange experiences, talk to each other, have access to networks of partners, information, and fostering and advocating for policies and better financial resources. It is not by chance that we find ourselves before this opportunity to interconnect the leaders of all 5 leaders through this specific platform that is being launched today, and this specific tool and resource that is now allowing us to talk to each other, to be in touch with each other, which would have been very difficult to do without technology. The opportunities afforded by technology, which is a very powerful tool and which is certain to grow and progress much more into the future. So once again, thank you for this invitation. And let me once again say that ICA has undertaken a commitment in this area. We have carried out research and contributions to show the importance of digital literacy and also the contributions made by rural women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. As you might know, she is the Special Advisor on Digitalization at ICA. And now we are going to give the floor to Beverly Best, who is the Director of External and Institutional Relations, so she can also give us some conclusions on this forum. Ms. Best, you have the floor.
Good morning to all. Thanks to all our panelists for their contribution. I also want to thank my colleagues, Don Lloyd, Ileana, as well as Mariela, for their inputs and contributions so far. Now, Sandra, you have done a great job in wrapping up. I'm not sure if I should say much more. But anyway, I'll say a few words. Against the backdrop of the recently concluded pre-summit and the much anticipated Food System Summit, which is scheduled to take place in September, today's forum offers ICA and its 34 member states another great opportunity for our women to come together to shape a hemispheric agri-food systems agenda that will realize the vision of an equitable and healthy future and also respects our planetary boundaries. Today's launch of the Hemispheric Platform of Rural Women is an opportune juncture of a journey which has gained momentum from the various forums convened by ICA with women in the Western Hemisphere since 2020. Based on the many insightful and passionate contributions provided by our speakers and panelists today, it is evident that this forum of rural women has brought together a wide cross-section of women from across the hemisphere who have a strong determination to join ICA and its partners to create the change that is needed for a more inclusive and sustainable agri-food system. As the global spotlight falls on redesigning food systems to deliver safe and healthy food, livelihoods, and environment for all, our institute underscores the equal importance of ensuring that women who represent approximately 50% of producers and consumers are not left behind. This sentiment was recently echoed by Ms. Jemima Juki, who is the lead of the summit's Gender Lever of Change, when she stated, and I quote, "Women are the nucleus of our global food system, but their value is undermined by patriarchy," end of quote. This reality is referred to by Caroline Criado Perez in her book, Invisible Women. Interestingly though, Ms. Perez makes the point that the general global trend and approach to almost every aspect of life which is labeled as male unless indicated otherwise. This is neither malicious nor even deliberate, but it is the product of systemic thinking that exists for eons. In the absence of the obvious challenges that women face, others have referred to the glass ceiling as well as the glass wall to describe the invisible and seemingly impenetrable constraints faced by women in general in the global development agenda. While these issues may be highly debatable, it is inarguable that there is no quick fix to realize a paradigm shift that will change the status quo of rural women in the agri-food systems. The UN Food System Summit provides an ideal platform for countries to come together and find solutions to help support the livelihoods of all, including women. Notwithstanding, it is clear that women's concern will not be addressed in the agri-food system without the active participation of women, from the grassroots up to those who are involved in political and economic leadership. One of the greatest lessons taught throughout history and human civilization is that one community of people cannot adequately represent the interests of another community, no matter how sincere their intentions, no matter how concerted their efforts. Such is the case with women and men. It is Chinua Achebe, the prominent Nigerian novelist and essayist, who summed up this idea most appropriately when he stated, "There is a great proverb that until the lions tell their own story, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." I have taken the liberty to paraphrase it a little bit, but the saying is still true in terms of its meaning. In keeping with gender mainstreaming commitment of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the design and implementation of ICA's Technical Cooperation Agenda for Transforming Agri-Food Systems in the Americas seeks to ensure that gender issues are treated as cross-cutting. In fact, the involvement and leadership of rural women are treated as essential given their unique abilities to be drivers of game-changing solutions and agents of change. Central to this notion is women empowerment. Today's discourse refers to several critical areas which will enhance women's empowerment and the role of this platform that will serve as a powerful enabler in doing so. With this platform, there is a strong path towards improving the quality of life for rural women, their families, and communities, while also advancing the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda in general, and the Sustainable Development Goal number 5 in particular. Certainly, there are some important achievements that can be built upon and leveraged towards a transformed food system. For example, we've heard about, I think it was Grisella who spoke about voices of women together. We also know about women's cooperative agricultural activities in rural areas. These have significantly improved the operation of small-scale agricultural production, as well as provide surplus for sale. Women are generally first adopters or early adopters of new agricultural techniques. Within our hemisphere, we know all too well that agriculture and rural development can address rural poverty, migration, food security, inequality, limited employment opportunities, lack of social protection, as well as investment. These must be made, which must be made in food security and agriculture to addressing gender responsive issues, in particular in terms of the policies that support small and medium agricultural enterprises, among others. And these have been articulated well by our 5 panelists earlier on. So before I close, I wish to acknowledge the great contribution that our rural women throughout the hemisphere have made and continue to make through their individual and collective actions towards a more sustainable and resilient agri-food system in the Americas. The launch of this platform is just the start of our Institute's effort to strengthen its collaboration in support of the urgent objective of empowerment of our rural women in the hemisphere to deliver an agricultural or an agri-food system for all. Cognizant of an uncertain and ambiguous future, the best way we can envision the impact of this platform for rural women is to use a phrase from one of our Caribbean laureate, Derek Walcott, the late Derek Walcott of St. Lucia, when he stated, break a vase. Now, Lloyd will say vase, that's the American translation. Break a vase or break a vase, and the love that reassembles the fragment is stronger than the love which breaks or which took the symmetry for granted when it was whole. Let me repeat that. Break a vase, and the love that reassembles the fragments is stronger than the love which took its symmetry for granted when it was whole. Today marks an important milestone in this journey of the love that reassembles. I thank you.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, agradezco a las especialistas Sandra Ziegler y Beverly Best.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Sandra Ziegler and Beverly Best, for their wonderful concluding words. And this will help us think of what women can do together for the benefit of agri-food systems. Thank you all for taking the time to be part of this opportunity, and we urge you to please go to the platform and become part of it. Now, we will be listening to the specialist of gender and youth in ICA.
Muchísimas gracias a Carolina.
Well, thank you very much,
Y a
Carolina.
todas las panelistas y también a las comentaristas. Le doy el pase a Federico Villarreal.
And now I will give the floor to Federico Villarreal,
quien nos va a brindar unas palabras de cierre.
who
Adelante,
will give us the
Federico.
closing
Gracias.
words. He is the Director of Technical Cooperation Directorate. Thank you very much, Ileana. Thank you all. I am going to be very brief. I would like to thank particularly the entire team who has worked from ICA in the development of this platform, of this wonderful tool. Something that I believe to be fundamental, and while I was thinking of my closing remarks, I believe it is very hard to say something different from what has been said so far, which has been so clear and so to the point. I have thought of saying things that it is important to share information and connect to each other, which Tamisha mentioned, and the importance of a family and the women, and which was something mentioned by Ileana, the importance of knowledge, and the word that Elvia mentioned. Maria talked about growing collectively, which is also key, and that the voice of women should be taken into consideration. And that last phrase, and Griselda also talked about the need for change, and that it is important to change. To change is always towards a certain direction, and that direction should be towards a pathway where women's voices are actually listened to. And all these ideas were very interesting to me. And I wrote a question to Priscila Zúñiga in the chat room. Priscila Zúñiga was part of the original team who worked in this platform together with Eliana. And you all know about the efforts made and how many of you have endeavored your efforts to this. But sadly enough, she was not able to stay until the very end because she was appointed by the President of Costa Rica as the Vice Minister for the police forces of Costa Rica. And Ileana said something about the voice, and so I believe that Priscilla should do the closing remarks. She said that it's important to influence, inspire for leadership, because this is what will allow us to build things together. So why not listen to Priscilla and Priscilla to see what is an example of said inspiration and said leadership, because she has a very high responsibility, which she's uh, accomplishing really well. And she was key for the development of this platform. So I wanted to give the floor to her so that she can give us her closing remarks. So I don't know, Priscilla? Well, Federico, thank you very much. It is a great pleasure to be able to share time with all of you here. It is a great pleasure to greet you all here. As a team, we truly feel honored to be able to launch this hemispheric platform for rural women, because it will allow us to connect to women, to become well informed and train ourselves as well. It is an opportunity for us to continue working together and having great leadership within the agri-food systems. Of course, this is a product that is not only there thanks to the efforts of the institution, but it gathers the efforts of all of us as women. It shows all the information and data that we collect in the field, in the agri-food systems. And it is also a place that represents women and the changes we generate. So, so I would like to thank the team. First of all, as Federico was saying, I would like to thank everybody who became involved and contributed for this to happen, and for all the women with their leadership, their voices, and their strength will be generating a community through this space. So I would like to invite you all to be part of it, to make it your own, to form a community, and for this hemispheric platform of rural women to be something, a living thing, thanks to your participation and your knowledge. So thank you all and thank you for allowing me to participate in with my closing remarks, and thank you all for your efforts. Thank you very much, Don Federico. So thank you, Priscilla. Ileana, the floor is yours. Thank you, Federico. Thank you, Priscilla. I believe that this recognition is well given, and so we feel truly proud of this. So we thank Grisela, Elvia, Maria, Tamisha, Liliana, and all the other participants being able to carry out the forum together with the launching of the platform was a great idea. This is not for ICA. This is something that ICA is creating for rural women. And the idea is for us to continue having these dialogues and for the platform to truly be an area where we can empower ourselves and have access to information, to training. And we have had those questions posted in Menti, so we do urge you to go into mujeresrurales.ica.ent and become part of this initiative and register yourselves. And I would also like to thank the representatives from Uruguay, Jamaica, Colombia, Mexico, and Guatemala for their support and in coordinating with the panel members. And I would also like to thank the Secretariat of Agriculture and Livestock, Judith Torres from Guatemala, who has joined us throughout this event. So let's continue working on the platform, and let's continue building together a more equitable and inclusive agriculture for women in the rural areas. Thank you very much.